Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. It's Monday afternoon, and I'm Paul John Dykes, delighted this afternoon to be joined by Jerry Taylor and Acsom Rabbani. What a star-studded lineup we have for you today. The football's back, your trampolines lying in your neighbour's garden. But as long as Celtic are back, everything is good. Jerry Taylor, first and foremost, brilliant to see you back, my friends. How you been? You've been a busy man over the last few weeks with your new theatre being launched.
I have been. Sorry, I've been off the radar, but we've launched Ayrshire Youth Theatre. 70 new members in the first week and a half, so it's been all go. I've got a lot of shows to write now, and it's just been great. But I've missed being on. I've missed you boys. It's been good.
Well, to be fair, right, see when there's like an international break over a weekend and you don't have a game to cover, it seems like a long time, 2 days, to go without talking about Celtic. Acsom, obviously, on a daily basis, I'm on here running through every nuance of Celtic, from youth development to transfer business. And of course, at the weekend, we were up against Buckie Thistle. Plucky Buckie. Fair play to them. First and foremost, Acsom, fair play to the opponents. I know that we had the ball in the net 9 times. Brendan Rodgers does what Brendan does. Big respect after the game. Goes into the dressing room. People, Acsom, people go on about the kind of David Brent aspect to stuff like that. But here's an example, right? A few years ago, I was talking to a couple of the guys who were on the coaching team at Haddington. And Haddington Athletic were doing really well in the Scottish, to the point where they got to the first round proper, right? So I think they were like 7th tier. They ended up getting to the first round proper. And I'm not sure where they eventually got knocked out, but they came up against Brecon City. I think Brecon beat them 1-0. And it was at the time when Craig Levine was the director of operations, or whatever his position was at Brecon. And the two guys in the coaching team said that they would have loved for Levine, former Scottish international manager, Acsom, to come in and just have a wee bit of chat, wee bit of cup of tea after the game, because it's just a respect thing, right? I mean, it's the fairy tale of the cup. It didn't happen. I don't know what that says about Craig Levine. So I think Brendan Rodgers doing it, I think it should be complimented. I think fair play, Brendan.
Yeah, like you said, there's probably been an element of, over the years, he's kind of had that reputation, like you say, the David Bedgate character, but I think it's more says about the class of the man. I think, it's a nice touch. People within the game and other managers have all kind of commented how good a kind of guy he is, and that's something that the Buckie players will probably remember forever. Just Brendan going in there, giving them a wee chat. So no, I think it's to be commended. I think it was a nice touch, something that their players will remember. And yeah, I think he's like that in general. He's got time for everyone. He's always got something to say to different players and different managers. And by all accounts, he's good for chats after the game with other managers and things as well. So that doesn't surprise me. And I think it says a lot about the man, really.
It does. I mean, we all know Jerry. Well, some of us do know what he's like in a dressing room, like yourself. Big hugs. You've got the pictures to prove it, Jerry.
You just took the words right out of my mouth, mate. So I've been on that side of it. We were down, was it 2? I think we were getting beat 2-0 at half time. Brendan Rodgers comes into the dressing room, has a quick chat with the players. We're up 2 each by the time I've come on, obviously. So I've come on and then we've equalised. So obviously I've helped at that with that as well. But he is, and the whole David Brent thing, I know that it was quite, a lot of people did think that. And I know that I've met him now, so obviously I've got this, I've met him, so I'm going to be nice about him. But it's not that. He took time to speak to everyone. And it wasn't about him. He wasn't making anything about him. And anytime, even when I went up to Celtic Park, he remembered my name. He came up and took the time to talk to me. He is a genuine, nice guy. And those, unless they're Rangers fans, the Buckie players will have absolutely loved that. I mean, I'd like to see the ones that weren't Celtic fans, how they responded to it. But, I mean, most of them will go away. They'll tell their kids, their grandkids. It's what an occasion. He knew how big an occasion that was for them. And he's gone in there to make it even better. Some folk will see it as patronising, but it isn't. It isn't. He's done the right thing. If he didn't go in and showed them no attention whatsoever, people will say, "Oh, he's too big for his boots for them." So he'll never be able to win. But he's a class guy. I thought it was a great occasion. I did feel sorry for the Buckie player that missed the 1-on-1 against Joe Hart, because he'll just be thinking about that for the rest of his life, of the time that he could have scored against Celtic but didn't. It was a strange one as well. A lot of people were kind of, I wouldn't say wanting Buckie to win, but they were kind of cheered him on at times, even Celtic fans. I thought, like you said, plucky Buckie. I'm an idiot that thought, oh, it'll be a cricket score. As you can see, I lost that bet. And it was a bit disrespectful, I think, towards Buckie. I thought they just, for the league that they're in, I just thought they did absolutely brilliant yesterday. So well done to Buckie. Thanks for the occasion.
Well, the thing is, Jerry, I wasn't going to mention the bet. I was just going to let it go under the radar, but you brought it up now. For anyone who didn't watch the game, the coverage of the game, rather, what bet are you talking about here? What are you referring to?
Right, so, well, obviously I was really snobby, and I was like, if we don't win by 8 clear goals, I did a Gary Lineker, didn't I? I said I would do the show in the underwear. I genuinely thought we'd got about, because that was me being reserved. I thought we'd have got about 10, and it's disrespect from mine. So if anyone thinks I'm just sitting here like some kind of trailer trash guy with the vest on, it's not. I'm in my underwear.
Listen, I think it's very fetching indeed. I don't think I could pull off a vest, Jerry, but fair enough. You've got the shoulders. I was going to say shoulders. You've got the shoulders to pull it off. I think it's more about class and it's more about charm. We know that Brendan Rodgers has got a ruthless side when he needs to tap into it. You've seen it with players even. I think one of the most ruthless acts as the manager since he's come back has probably been the Lagerbielke situation. I know that he was back on the bench yesterday, but here's a guy that we've paid good money for him. We've paid the same money for Lagerbielke as we have done for a new recruit in Nicholas Kuhn, and he doesn't fancy him for whatever reason. And even when he's coming in and scoring a goal against Feyenoord in the Champions League, he's dropping him. So there's the ruthless nature, and I'll come back to that with regards to the post-match comments around the youngster Rocco Vata.
Yeah.
And then you've got that charm that he's got and the class that he's got. And I'm saying David Brent tongue-in-cheek because we've heard all the stories in all these podcasts about Gucci belts and talking in Spanish in the dressing room and all that kind of stuff. To be fair, Asim, I love all that. I just think that's quirky.
It's box office Brendan. You just don't know what you're going to get. It's from one extreme killer, but I think the fact that you guys have kind of had that first-hand experience of what he's like, because see the stuff at the St. Rocks game and that's not going to be really out there in terms of like mainstream media, so he doesn't need to do all that. That's just him being him and him being genuine and coming along to an occasion and kind of just being himself and knowing the impact that he can have. And so I think that says a lot. And you do see some interviews sometimes with him where you see a bit more of his kind of human side and he's, away from football. I watched an interview once, I think it was like a golf thing, I don't know, it was one of those soccer type things. And he just comes, yes, that's the one. And I think he just comes across really well when he's away from the football and just being himself. And you're right, I think some of the reputation he's had, and I think that was initially came about from that Liverpool kind of media programme, wasn't it? And I think ever since then it's just kind of stuck. But by all accounts, people that have had deals with him, be it ex-players, ex-managers, have got nothing but good things to say about him. So, you'd like to just kind of hang on that. But you're right, some of the box office stuff, it makes for entertaining viewing. And he's got both sides to him. He can be probably quite ruthless, as we've seen. And he takes no fools. So yeah, I like it. I like the kind of mix he's got, and it looks like just in general we've got a kind of happy dressing room and happy place at the moment in the last 5-6 weeks with results going our way. So you just hope that kind of carries on, and we kind of go from strength to strength now.
It's one of the things, in the game of football, you're going to be coming up against people who drop you, don't play you, don't rate you. And you can, it's one of these things that if you did have a good relationship, all those wee quirky things, you would write them off as being quirky, right? And you'd have a bit of a giggle about it. But the minute your relationship, because the guys that are having a pot shot at Brendan, it's because Brendan never played them, or he sold them, or he didn't rate them, right? But that wee quirkiness turns into who does he think he is? It's ego, it's this and that, and that's where that creeps in. Quite frankly, I thought it was brilliant by Brendan Rodgers. I do really rate him highly as a coach, the man management that we've heard about in the past. And I think also there's a respect there, Jerry, because he's a guy who wasn't a great footballer, didn't have a great career as a player, and then he's come into the coaching side of things and really had to work it up from grassroots, build up his reputation and his profile. So I think there's always that level of respect for the wee team. And by the way, yesterday after the game, Jerry, I'm sitting there thinking, I want Bonnie the Grows. I want that kind of fairy tale element of the cup. We'll have a chat about, obviously, the fact that we've got St Mirren. We'll be looking at Cameron Carter-Vickers' contract talks, the new signing, because, Jerry's been off for a couple of weeks, hasn't had an opportunity to speak about him. And we'll also be speaking about Rocco Vata. Listen, there's a klaxon. 10 minutes in, the Rocco Vata klaxon. Matt O'Reilly in his performance, Paulo Bernardo Odin home, Kyogo Lewis Palma, Ross County coming up this weekend, and of course, Owen Beck's 7 minutes for Liverpool at the weekend as well. Get your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks everybody for joining us today. 700 strong on a Monday afternoon. Jungle Lion. It's the wind that shakes the Buckie. It is. And by the way, Jerry, I know some people don't like alcohol and gambling on football jerseys, but I think Buckie Thistle are missing a trick. I really think they need some kind of link in with the Benedictine monks. You could work that into your mascot, the whole thing. The jerseys would sell worldwide.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get in touch with them because I've got a tour going out this year for the play that I've written called Blame It on the Buckie. So I'm going to try and tie in with them with that. So even though I don't drink, but I'm still writing plays about it, it doesn't matter. But
it's such a part of the culture. Let's be honest. It's a part of the culture. You think even sometimes where they appears in film. Remember the train spotting scene where they're down in London doing the deal and Renton wakes up and does the dirty on his mates and there's a bottle of Buckie on the sink and all that. It's one of these things. I'm 45-year-old. Just a wee disclaimer here. I don't drink Buckfast tonic wine, but I know that a lot of people do partake in a wee swally here and there. And I just think Buckie Thistle, come on, get it on the jerseys. It would sell worldwide. Make them a few quid, Acsom.
Yeah, 100%. There's something there to be had. I'm not a drinker either, so likewise. And to be honest, I'm not a fan of kind of gambling companies on shirts and things. I think that's something that could be done away with, just with the kind of gambling pandemic that's out there at the moment and stuff like that. But in terms of the play on words and the kind of the deals that could be had for Buckie, 100%. I think that's something that I thought they would have tapped into already. But like you say, Jerry, you could be the man to tie it all together.
Listen, if there's anyone for Buckie Thistle watching today, get in touch with us. Let's make it work.
Absolutely, yes. And by the way, just before we get into all the nitty-gritty of Celtic news and what's happening at Celtic Park with 10 days to go before that transfer window slams shut. Jerry, you were talking about setting up a youth theatre. Tell us, how can we find you? Come on, give it a plug. You've got 70 members. We want to push that over 100 initially. So where can we find you?
If you go onto Facebook, it's Ayrshire Youth Theatre, and if you email ayrshireYouthTheatre@gmail.com, we do loads of different classes from musical theatre to comedy to improv, drama, all that kind of stuff. But we've also got an adult class which has done really, really well. It's called the Ayrshire Creative Team. We've got 2 shows coming up, one for the youth theatre that I've written called Minging in the Rain. That's coming in June. And we've got the adult class. We're doing a horror, murder mystery called the Calamityville Horror that I'm writing. So that's the next 2 coming up. So if you know somebody that's interested in the arts in Ayrshire, come and join us. You can be on all our shows and working with professionals in the industry. That's our USP. Everyone that teaches our classes is a professional that is currently working in the industry just now. There's the plug.
Superb, Jerry. Superb. We'll be sharing the links on the socials as well. Supporting Jerry, the member of the Acsom team. As always, that's what we'll always do with anybody within the Acsom contributors team. Obviously, we've had people like Jim Orr doing theatre shows, Kevin Graham releasing books, and we'll always push the wares, particularly the creative side of that, Jerry. I love all that. Joe Hamilton, I hope you're well, Joe. You are commenting on the YouTube. Brendan, calling out Vata and praising Kelly. That's man management. Right. You brought it up, Joe, which allows me to discuss one of my favourite subjects, youth development. Rocco Vata. It's his 5th appearance for the club, 4 under Ange Postecoglou, his first under Brendan. There's been big question marks over him. I mean, we have spoken a lot to the point where people are now winding me up in the comments because it's all I've gone about Vata. And I take on board, right, that a manager comes in. He's worked with this player now for, 6 months? He's obviously got an idea of his abilities, his attitude, his application, where he is in the pecking order, because we've got quite a lot of players in that position. But I did find his comments after the game quite interesting. This is what he said about Rocco. He has potential. He needs a lot of work. So he gives him the positive, then he pulls him back down. But I think he has some really good attributes. He's strong, he's got decent pace, and he wants to score goals. It's all about discipline for young players, doing the work and having the right attitude. This is what Brendan is a master at, Acsom. So within the 3 sentences, he's told them, I rate you, but you need to improve.
Yeah.
You need to improve if you're going to play in my team.
He's done that a lot this season, Rodgers, with his kind of compliments. It's always backhanded compliments or like compliments with a but. And a lot of the time it's with some of these younger players or not even younger in terms of, he had a similar comment about Mikey Johnston a while back, David Turnbull. So he's obviously, the Vattel one's quite a strange one because on Friday we suddenly seen a U-turn in terms of there might be a deal to be had that just kind of came out of nowhere. So you wonder if, you don't want to speculate without knowing the facts, but you wonder if it is just like an attitude thing, that behind the scenes something's holding Rodgers back in terms of really giving him an opportunity. Whether that's because there's speculation that there's not even been a deal offered to Vata, or there has and he's refused to sign it. We don't know the exact ins and outs, or I don't know the exact ins and outs of that. So it's hard to fully speculate. But there's no smoke without fire that something's obviously been holding the relationship back between them in terms of we've only got obviously one striker at the moment, but even earlier in the season, there's been times where we've been crying out for maybe another winger or someone else to be given a go when we weren't playing so well, and he was still nowhere to be seen. Yet again, he came on yesterday. I thought he looked bright. He looks like he's bulked up. So again, I wonder if that's something he's been working on behind the scenes or something he's been told by the management and coaching staff that, look, we need more physicality from you, because he certainly looks like he's added that to his game. He's got a good height. He's got a bit of pace on him. He's obviously got an eye for goal. So by all accounts, he's the exact kind of young player that you want to be keeping at the club. But for whatever reason, as of last week, it looks like he's going to be going, which is just so unfortunate. Now, I'm hoping that the report that came out on Friday, the fact he's then had game time yesterday, scored, Rodgers' comments afterwards, is just something that we can then push on and maybe get a deal signed and keep him, because I think he is one for the future and it's the kind of players you want to keep. So let's hope that's the turning point, because I've got high hopes for him, but you just don't know what the actual issue is behind the scenes. But Rodgers, he everything he says is usually with a message. He's very careful with his words. So if he's coming out and praising him, but then throwing in the butt, he's got a lot of work to do. He's got, he needs to work him as this, that, the next thing. That to me tells you everything you kind of need to know.
I agree. We can only really go with the words of the gaffer, and anything else that we manage to pick up because we're nosy that way, Jerry. So if you're in the presence of ex-players and all that kind of stuff, you try and pick up as much as you possibly can. My man says, Jerry, were you watching Die Hard last night?
There's a lot of Jerry comments coming up.
That is a fair question. And Jared's not letting this go. Where's the mankini? So there you go.
I know. I did say I was gonna wear a mankini. That'll be my next bet. But I just don't want to. That's no fair in the rest of you. I mean, it's lunchtime.
There's a couple of things that I can be broadcasting, Jerry, on a Celtic State of Mind, and I can physically see viewers dropping off. There's a couple of subjects that I know if we start talking about them, the viewers will start dropping off. I'm not going to mention them, and I don't know what the response would be if you were to do such a thing. Rocco Vata.
Yeah, did you see? I don't know if you saw the images after the game when Brendan Rodgers has come onto the pitch and he's went up to Rocco Vata. Did you see it? He's basically, his actions mirrored what he said. So if you see it, he was doing this. He went up to him and he looked quite frustrated. He was doing this kind of gesture as if you should have moved back first before you took that. And then he went, but well done, big, and then gave him a cuddle. So you could actually see that being visualised. You could see it. But I remember teachers being like that with me all the time. It was like the frustration that I wouldn't shut up and listen because I had the potential. And I got that from him. I think he may be getting sick of it. But like Acsom, you're saying, there's a lot of buts when it comes to players, and we've no room for buts anymore. It's got, do you know what I mean? I didn't mean that as a pun in any way, but there isn't. We don't have room for that. It's got to be. We need to start bringing in the players that we go, yes, they're ready to go. Attitude, application, talent, the lot, and that's what we need to be doing as Celtic now. Yeah. That's what I think. I think he's a great wee player, but I think the attitude thing keeps coming up. I don't know. That's just hearing offhand. Has he got this? I don't know. I've been the wonder kid and I should be treated better. I don't know. You never know what's going on behind the scenes, but there seems to be a few of them. I mean, him and Mikey Johnston absolutely loved that after it. You could see the bond that they've got, the two of them. Well, Mikey's not that young anymore, but when he set him up and he scored, you could see it. I'd like to see more of him. I'm not too
He's
sure.
only 18 as
I
well.
don't think Brendan is keen. Is he? Is he 18?
He's only 18, so I think there's a lot of potential.
Maybe a wee
there.
loan into the SPL somewhere. I would quite like to see.
The thing with Rocco, and this has happened with Dembele, and it happened before him with Islam Feruz, is the hype. There's been a hype about him. You look at the other kid who came on yesterday. Nobody's been speaking about Daniel Kelly. No one. Maybe his family. And he came on, and you're delighted for the boy, right? You're delighted for him because he's been at Celtic since he was 10-year-old. This is what I keep going on about. A lot of these young kids, they've been at Celtic since they were 8, 9, 10. They come into the team at 18 and 19 and you think they're bairns, but they've been at the club for 10 years. They're due a testimonial when they kick their first ball for the first team. They've been in the team and in the bowels of Celtic that long, and they know what it means to play for the club. So I think there's been a hype around Vata. And by the way, there's nothing the player can do about that, but it does add unnecessary pressure. And with that comes the responsibility of the club to try and protect them from the hype. Did we protect Dembele from the hype? I'm not sure we did. Did we protect Islam Feruz? Listen, I've heard all the stories about players' attitudes and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a balance. But you imagine, put yourself in their boots for a second. 18-year-old, right? You're getting decent wages. You're a Celtic player. Everybody knows your name. It's going to be difficult to keep. By the way, Rudy Vata will keep the boys' feet on the ground, but it will be difficult to keep your feet on the ground. And then you've got agents in your ear telling you how great you are. You could get double, triple, 10 times your money if you go to Italy and this and that. That's all happening in the background as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the agent thing you mentioned at the end is a big one, because you look back in years gone by in previous eras, that wasn't the case as much. Now there's so much involvement from agents from such a young age, and by all accounts that was similar with Islam Feruz, because you're right, he was the next big one. And then he went off to Chelsea, and then you just look at the career path he's had since then. It just shows you like maybe these agents are ill-advising them too soon, making these wrong moves, because I remember the chat about him was he was going to be the next big wonder kid. Dembele as well. Now I see he's playing at Blackpool, but again, people had such high hopes for him. He broke into the first team. I remember he had a really promising debut, and then the next season we see nothing of him again. So I think we as a club have to do better in terms of managing how we give these players a pathway and how we deal with them. Obviously, the Ben Doak was the most recent one. Again, there's two sides to every story. People say that it was the club's fault, or you can't blame the player for taking such a big move to Liverpool. And to be fair, he's featured for Liverpool. He's actually had opportunities within their first team. So yeah, with these kind of younger guys now, you just have to make sure that if we're not seeing a future for them, we have to obviously let them go, because there's no point. But with the likes of Vata, it seems the club do want them. So I guess it's just there to see if there's a deal that can be ironed out. Same with Kelly. I thought he did well when he came on yesterday. Brilliant occasion for him to get his debut in front of the home crowd. And that's what you want to see. Celtic fans love seeing the academy players get a chance.
No, we do. We absolutely do. By the way, I do find it's an interesting topic. You get the cult player. The minute you start talking about cult players, and if you put it on the socials, it gets a lot of attention. People are drawn to it, right? And it's the same with young guys with hype. The hype that surrounded Ben Doak, Karamoko Dembele, Rocco Vata, Islam Feruz. It'll be interesting in 10 years' time to see. We know what happened to Feruz. He's been out the game for years. I mean, he never kicked a ball for Chelsea, I don't think. In fact, one of his loan clubs, I'm sure, was Blackpool. He had loads of loan deals out here, there, and everywhere. He played a few games with Hibs under Alan Stubbs. People might forget. But is it a good thing? There are some agents, I'm not going to say every agent, I'm not telling everybody with the same brush, that once they get that big move, and in Feruzzi's case, it was Celtic to Chelsea, they'll get their cut. Are they that concerned what happens after that to the player? I don't know. So these are the things these young guys need to be aware of. And I've got to say, I think that, with regards to Rocco, he's got Rudy in his corner, and he's a guy that will definitely, for me, he'll represent him. I'm not saying he's his agent, but he'll definitely represent him in the right way as well. Thanks everybody for getting involved. Who else have we missed out? Who was the next big hope that it didn't quite work out for? Let us know in the comments section from all the different eras of Celtic support. And here we've got Double Denim. Hi folks, great to see you as always. Great performance and result yesterday. Hoping that means Vata is staying and will get a chance in the first team. Still believe we need additional strengthening to kick on in the league. If you can hear a wee bit of banging in the background for my end, that's because we are getting a wee bit of work done in the studio at the moment. So I'll go on mute when Jerry and Asim are talking as well. Right, we need to talk about strengthening. We need to talk about the fact that we've got 10 days to go. Jerry Taylor, a bit of a disappointment because we thought we were in the hunt for Owen Beck, who obviously played 7 minutes of football for Liverpool yesterday. And in a season, you can't play for more than 3 teams. Now, you'd need to look at the intricacies of that particular part of the rule book to see if you can sign for 3 teams, because the only way that Celtic could sign him is if we then loan him out to Dundee to play some football. I mean, it's a bizarre scenario because it sounded, obviously you had the mainstream reporting on it, but we were getting some chat from good sources that Beck was on our radar, and then he plays yesterday, and it's kind of kibosh that, isn't it?
Yep, scuppered our chances now. The thing that's getting me, right, because over the past few months, you're starting to hear more and more about this guy, and you start to get a little bit excited, thinking, right, we're going to sign him. But what's getting me is, and no offence to Dundee or anything like that, but we needed a left back in that window. Why were we not looking at him? Why did our scouts not know about this boy before he went to Dundee, which is my question? Because if we knew that Bernabeu was playing as much, we know there's been issues at left back. I'm just thinking, why did we miss out? But by them playing him yesterday, they obviously have seen that he's a player well worth having in the squad now. So we've missed out on that one, unfortunately. So I'm not going to dwell on it. But who knows? In the summertime, it could be. They've obviously recalled him for Liverpool and not to sell him on. So now that they've played him, unless did Klopp not realise? I don't know. But it's out the window now, so we do need some signings. And the striker position's kind of getting me, because when it kind of hit me yesterday, if Kyogo goes off, who have we got right now? Obviously, Vata been playing up front for the national team as well. And I don't know, striker for me and still left back for me. I think Greg Taylor's good enough for us to see out the league because we're not in Europe anymore. That was always my problem, that I didn't think he was good enough for Europe. He's good enough to see it out, but I'd like to see a left back in so we can bed him into the squad ready for next season. So I said I'd give to the 3rd of January before I start getting a bit stressed. I had it in my head. I convinced myself, lads, that we had these signings ready to come in. I had, and I'm starting to get a bit, we're maybe not going to get the players in we need. I think Kuhn's a decent signing. Don't know enough about him. Just YouTube as always. Brendan seems to really like him. But for me, a left back just now and a striker are the priorities. Definitely striker. But I'm a wee bit squeaky bum time for me now.
Well, you know, leading into this, Asim, we'll get back to Buckie Thistle and the performances, etc., and who did well for us. But leading into this, I was using words like patience and all this kind of stuff. And to get the quality, you need patience. And a few people said, listen, that sounds like a party line from the club. And I get that to a degree, but how can I possibly criticise the summer transfer window, which I have done since it happened? And then when we come into January, just, you know, it's a free-for-all. We just won't bother. It's not about getting bodies in the building. And I found it interesting over the weekend that Brendan Rodgers actually spoke about that. He could have had players in on the 1st of January. It clearly is all about quality over quantity this time round, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the small crumb of comfort I'm getting, which is, like you say, Rodgers' comments that, you know, we could just be getting players in for the sake of it, which gives me a wee bit of hope that maybe in these last 10 days, because I'm with you, Jerry. For me, I know a lot of people say left back, but out of the 2 positions right now, I feel like a striker is a priority because Greg Taylor's kind of came onto a game a wee bit again. Look, long term, 100%, we need a new left back. We need someone that's going to take us to the next level. But I think your point there, domestically, Jerry, I think we can get by with Taylor. The issue is, again, we've got no real backup. You know, in terms of Bernabei's not a viable backup. Worst case, you'd probably maybe need to move Ralston out to left back if Taylor got injured, or you could put Scales there. But again, why take away one of your best centre backs this season? So it's not ideal, but I'm looking at it in terms of the second half of the season. A Kyogo injury, and then you're starting to have to then rely on who we've not really at any point relied on as a main striker there in these 2 seasons here. Putting Abada or Maeda up front, again, I don't think that's the answer. It's too important a season for us. There's 16 games to go. We have to make sure we're giving ourselves the best opportunity to get this league sewn up And if we don't go out and buy a striker, then I think that's negligence. I think that's, you look back to the famous season that we didn't buy Stephen Fletcher and we bought Willow Flood. Everyone always references that season as being one where we slept at the wheel. We thought we'd have enough, and we lost in the last day of the season on the back of 2 0-0 draws. I think it was at the end of that season.
Yep.
And everyone was crying out for it. If we bought Stephen Fletcher, all if, buts and maybes, but you just knew as that second half of the season was coming, we're short here in the forward department. And again, for me, look, Kyogo's scored again yesterday. Hopefully he's going to, his form's going to carry on. But you're an injury away. And a lot of our issues this season has been, at times, breaking down stubborn defences, in terms of whereas I think defensively, we seem a bit more solid now. I think we'll be fine. But my issue is these kind of tight games where it's 0-0 and you're trying to break down a team. You want that penalty box striker. If it's maybe not working with Kyogo and you want to bring something different on the way we used to with Giakoumakis, we need something like that. Someone that just knows where the goal is and can get us a win out of nowhere. So that's a priority for me. And I think we've got 8-9 days. I think we might even end up seeing loan moves if we can't get like our priority signings. But I think we will see a couple come in.
Yeah, I do agree with that with regards to the loans, Acsom. And by the way, when it comes to the strikers in the striking department, I can't even talk about that period of time where there was a crossover where we had Giakoumakis and O in the building, because we had 3 strikers at that moment, Kyogo, O and Giakoumakis, but it didn't last that long. Of course, he was on his way out. It's like we had a replacement for him before he had left the building. So I think we've ran for far too long short in that position. Always go back to the game against St Johnstone. The game against St Johnstone on Boxing Day, which would have been 2022. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. And Kyogo played and shouldn't have played. He was rushed back for that particular game. Might have been a year before. He was rushed back. Yeah, rushed back for the game. It goes off and Joey Dawson comes on the podcast and it's like, that's how threadbare we were. We needed to strengthen. Giakoumakis, of course, was injured at the time. We didn't run with the 3. We've never ran with the 3. And then you look at the scenario and think, well, Kuhn can play through the middle. Abada can play through the middle. Maeda can play. We get all that. But an out-and-out striker, I still think we need one. I'm really keen to bring in as many of your comments as possible. And here's an interesting one. Paul Bosas, welcome back to the show. You're commenting on YouTube. Jack Aitchison, where is he now? Anybody without Googling it, where is Jack Aitchison right now? The youngest goal scorer Celtic have ever had. 16 years of age he was when he came on against Motherwell and scored. 23
I forgot all about him.
Yeah, he's only 23.
He's playing at a lower league English side maybe last season. Rings a bell. Yeovil or something. I don't know. I could be wrong.
This is what he
Does
did.
Tony Watt count in this? Because obviously he wasn't spoken of as highly, but after that Barcelona goal, I don't know. Does he count?
I think he is.
Yeah.
I think he does. I think he does, Jerry, because
100%.
even when we spoke to Johan Mjällby, who, of course, was part of the coaching team when Tony broke through, he spoke about the potential around this boy, and then he scores that goal against Barcelona, and he, in a strange way, said it could have been the worst thing that happened to him, scoring that goal, because after that, with the hype and everything else that came with it, and then a few people in his ear. By the way, shameless plug, go and check out the Johan Mjällby interview. It's in full on the YouTube channel. And by the way, yesterday, because as I say, there was trampolines and plastic bins flying all over the place, I decided not to go for my normal wander around Paradise this morning, just in case there was a tree or whatever in the roads trying to leave Fife. So we cancelled it today, and it'll be happening at some point this week. But in the meantime, we do have some bonus material that's going to drop at 6 o'clock on the page. It's more of a kind of behind-the-scenes Johan Mjällby video, whereby I sat down and had a good chat with Big Mjällby. And that was backstage. We spoke about the Barcelona game. We focused on that game, and we focused on 3 figures from that game. So check it out. Wanyama, Fraser Forster, and Tony Watt, as it happens, are the 3 players we focused on. Right, so Jack Aitchison, now 23 years of age. He went from Celtic. He had a couple of loan moves to Dumbarton, Alloa Athletic, and Forest Green. He then joined Barnsley. He joined Barnsley before moving on to Stevenage on loan. He went to Forest Green again, went back to Barnsley. He spent a wee bit of time with Motherwell, believe it or not, and he is now plying his trade in League One with Exeter City, the 23-year-old who is in the Celtic history books as being the youngest goal scorer of all time. So that's where Jack Aitchison is now. Let's talk about our new signing then, guys, because obviously transfer window is still open, 10 days to go. Stevie Mitzi 1 says, Kuhn will need to be some player to keep Abada out. I get the feeling that he'll be a super sub. Right. So straight off the bat then, we bring in a winger, Jerry, and I don't think many of us were talking about wingers. Acsom, were you talking about wingers, bringing in a winger?
Yeah, I was really keen. Yeah.
I've just said left back, goalie, striker, but the goalie will happen in the summer. So we bring in a winger, and it leaves us kind of top heavy in that department, Jerry. And I think the big question is, what does it mean for the rest of them? Who would you say are the 4 wingers that are your first team players, and what do we do with the rest of them?
Abada, Maeda, definitely without a doubt. Who am I missing? Yang's never really.
Palmer, surely.
Palmer. I'm just trying. Palmer, I love Palmer, but it's low averages with him just now. He's like, he does the same move over and over again. Eventually, he might break through, but he's got that skill. He's just really frustrating. I think next season we'll see the best of Palmer. So I always want Palmer to start. So it's hard when it comes to Maeda. Abada obviously was a bit off yesterday because he was acting like Yang with the amount of offsides that he was getting, but he's there, he's in about it. I think Abada's one of our strongest players. So for me, I think is James Forrest going to go? Yang's going out. I don't know. Is he going to be using him as a winger? I don't
James
know.
Can't go because he's good in the dressing room. He's good at he's good at the place.
I like your teammate.
He can't go anywhere.
Now, for me, the strongest 4 would definitely be Maeda, Abada, Palmer, and I think this Kuhn going by what I see. It looks like he plays through the middle a lot with his last team. I don't know if that's he's just a heedless chicken, but a lot of the stuff I've seen him through was straight through the middle. But he plays in the right, but he's left-footed. Am I right?
Yeah.
I like the look of the guy, but I also like the look. I also like the look of Kwon. Remember, however, the boy's done all right, hasn't he? He's done all right since he went.
Yeah, he has. He absolutely has. And by the way, just
I know he's centre mid though.
Just interject on that one, right? We're talking about. We opened the show up talking about Brendan, the way that he builds relationships, etc. And he's been doing that with Stephen Robinson. If you think back, every single time we've come up against the Robinson team, and just listen to Brendan Rodgers, the way that he absolutely heaps praise on that manager, and to build these relationships, it does work in your favour because then you want to loan a player out, pick up the phone, do you fancy him? And I think it works in that respect. I think I agree with Jerry. That's my top 4 strikers, wingers rather, right? That's my top 4 wingers. And I think below that, you've got, for me, Yang and Tillio. I want them out in a development loan deal. Then you've got Johnston and Forrest. I think Johnston, a wee bit tricky and all that yesterday. We know we're going to get that from Mikey Johnston. But look at the level that we were playing yesterday. Johnston, I would still, if I could get a deal permanently, I would move him on. Jamesy Forrest, good in the dressing room, keep him. And finally, Vata, obviously, is the one we've already discussed. And I think he's one for the future. That's the way I would play it. But I definitely would look at Yang and Tillio for loan deals, Acsom.
Yeah, we're top heavy in the wing area, but the reason I was so keen to get one in is because they're not all contributing, and they're not all contributing consistently. So for me, you could almost wipe half of them away in the last, before we started our kind of good run of form, we were trying a new one every week. Mikey Johnson had a shot for a while, wasn't doing it. Yang wasn't doing it. Tillio wasn't featuring. James Forrest, for me, okay, people say, good teammate. I love James Forrest, brilliant servant, but he's not a contributor anymore. I know he scored that goal in St Johnstone, but you look at that game at Lazio away, you look at any other game now, he's just not got the attributes now to be able to really positively contribute in a game. So I don't count him really in terms of our starting winger options. So you take him out of the picture. I think Mikey Johnson, again, yesterday is just, symptomatic of what we see with Mikey Johnson. He'll come on, look really bright, set up a goal, and then you're like, okay, that was not bad. Then he'll start the next game, and it would, so that's what we've seen with Mikey Johnson for as long as I can remember now. So again, I'm not going to think he's going to be a regular contributor going forward. I would agree. I think it's time for him and the club to just find a deal for him to move on for all parties concerned. Yang, I agree. I think he's someone that can benefit from a loan, preferably again within our own league. Tellio, I've got no idea because, again, what have we seen? A minute or two of him. Again, Brendan Rodgers' comments about him always don't exactly strike you with a lot of kind of encouragement that he actually sees him as someone that he wants to use going forward. It's almost kind of throwaway remarks that we've seen with him, the way he was with Shred the first time, stuff like that. So, you can almost tell when a manager speaks what their plans are for that player. And I just don't think he's got big plans for Tellio. Looks like a signing that was obviously agreed prior to Brendan coming in. Like maybe many of them were. But for me, it's the four that you have mentioned. And the good thing with Kuhn, from what I've seen and what you hear, he's different to the other ones that we've got. He's a eliminator. He's someone that can take players on. He'll dribble well with it. For all of Maeda's strengths and weaknesses, we do know that one of them isn't that. He's not a creative player. Abada as well, he's fast, and you've seen what he can bring to the table yesterday, but he's not someone that when he's got the ball, you feel like he can skin a man with a bit of skill. Palma can, but again, he's not got the pace. So what Kuhn does is bring you that other thing that we've not got in the other three wingers. So I'm looking forward to that. It reminds me almost like Paddy Roberts when he was kind of effective for us, and Rodgers kind of really got the benefit out of Roberts. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can bring. The fact he can play across all three front positions is a benefit. I think he said he can play as a 10 or on the right, but I think we'll predominantly see him on that right-hand side. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can bring to the table. Hopefully he'll be fit and ready for Ross County to feature at some point.
That'll be good to see.
Yeah.
It definitely would. Yeah, Jerry.
Oh, sorry, but do you think like Brendan Rodgers, he's acting like a bit like a lion here? Do you know how like if a lion comes into a new pride and then they just kill off all the cubs from the previous lion? I think that's what Brendan Rodgers is doing with Andrew's signings just now, but he's just doing it subtly, isn't he? He's coming in, the Tillio's no mine, Yang's no mine. I just think he needs his
I think he wants his own squad, yeah. And then I think he feels that he can be fully judged once he's got a core nucleus of his own players, and right now he's obviously not.
See what you've done there, though, in a nutshell. That's exactly what I see this window being, right? And I know that summer and winter windows are different. They always are, right? You're not going to bring in the amount of bodies as you would in the summer. However, I think what you've just said is key there. This is Brendan Rodgers' transfer window. I think that's what's key. And in the last one, he can say what he wants because he needs to, out of respect for the club and his new employers and all this kind of stuff. And he doesn't want to throw a cat amongst the pigeons and say, I'm not buying these guys. But and also he might have to call upon the players at some point during the season before they leave the club. So he needs to get their buy-in as well. So I think he's been pretty cute with that. I'm not going to regard what he said there on the same level as what he said with the Prada belt. I think they're two different things, right? So for me, if we sign 2 or 3 players, and I would like it to be 3 in this window, I think the confidence I'll take for that is that it's been Brendan that's been involved in that rather than legacy signings like you were saying there, Jerry. And by the way, every time I read at the list of wingers, I forget about Haksabanovic, which is what Robert Hyland is referencing there as well, an unused sub for Stoke. There's so many players, and by the way, it's always been an issue. They come in and they show you their absolute best for the first few weeks, and then they tail off. Jackie done it with us. And I remember when Jackie, right, we sold him to Bristol City. And he played in the same team, Jerry, as Andy Cole. A young Andy Cole made his team at Bristol City, got the big move to Newcastle, and we know what happened after all that. And, honestly, if you look at Jakinowski's start for his career at Bristol, the fans thought he was a genius. 3 or 4 months later, he's playing for the reserves. And there's a lot of...
Dirk Borichter? Remember his first 5 minutes? I thought we've got an absolute gem here.
We've got a player here. We've got a player. I think the one that I never ever thought that about was Mo Bangura. He's a guy that I'm not sure what happened with that. That was.
I've told you the conspiracy theory about this Bangura. You heard about this?
Did we sign the wrong
my mate was a scout for an SPL team, right? And he was friends with Neil Lennon. I'm not going to say his name because I'm still pals with him. And this is true what he told me. Gospel, he told me this. They signed the wrong Bangura. They'd scouted someone, but it was the Bangura, the one that was doing great. And I think he ended up maybe was it Bayern or something like that? But we signed the wrong one. That's the rumour that they went, oh, it's this Bangura. And they brought him over and went, that's not him. So that's the conspiracy theory that I've heard. I do remember they all posted noted his car. Remember that?
Right.
That was the best Bangura moment.
Remember, we were talking to Charlie Mulgrew, and we never brought up Bangura. We spoke about players that looked as though they'd never kicked a football. and they're being flown in, and he said he was, hands down throughout his entire football career, the worst footballer he had ever seen. It's like he'd never
Was it not
kicked
Larson
the ball.
that Larson recommended him as well?
Cheers, Henrik.
But I
Cheers,
remember
buddy.
he actually came. Did he not come back and play against us? I think that always happens to him.
He
You
hit
get
the
these
post with
players.
like an overhead kick or something like that.
I think he was playing for
Played well.
Elfsborg or something.
Played well.
And it always seems to happen. If you remember Joe Ingeberget, who was a nothing for us, and then suddenly came back and effectively put us out the Champions League qualifier by scoring in the last minute for Malmo. So sometimes the players, it's a personality thing as well. You come to Celtic, you need to have a certain personality about you and be able to wear the shirt. And a lot of these players come and they just can't do it, and then they go away somewhere else, and you see that they forge a decent wee career. But even that Bio, did he not start doing okay for Watford?
He did.
So
he did.
It's
probably a whole list of recently.
A whole list of these players we could talk about.
Puckie's
the most recent one. Who went and done
Norwich
really well. Goal machine. Kaiser, we've been all positive here. Kuhn is a direct replacement for Abada. Listen, I can see why people are saying that. I hope we get out of this transfer window and we've still got Leo Abada on the books. Now, I know, listen, you can only play against your opponent that's in front of you. But I think yesterday, if we can just get him to refine his offsides rule, understanding of that rule, he will get back to that point. I just feel that there is an understanding, and there was an understanding with Jota and Kyogo. But it's all about movement. I'm not saying it's telepathic, but there's an understanding in football. And I think Abada knows the runs that Kyogo makes. How often have we seen him, finding him? And Kyogo, it's, for me, that's the kind of ball. And yeah, the goalie probably should have got it, but that's the kind of ball that he thrives on. And I think in the second half of the season, and I said it when I was looking at the game this morning, I think Abada is going to be key. We need to keep him. But we can only keep happy players at the club. Big Red, I don't want Forrest going anywhere. I want him to be a one-club man. Tongue in cheek when I'm talking about Forrest, but I'm going to go back to what you've just said there, Asim. I think this comes down to mentality. It comes down to the mentality, and I'm going to link this into Palmer, right? Because I don't think Palmer's played for a football club with the same kind of standards and demands that you get the minute you walk into Celtic Park, whereby you can't draw a game. A nothing each draw at Easter Road isn't good enough. And there's certain players that eventually get that, and then they are part of that culture within the club. And there's certain ones who never get it, and generally speaking, they won't make it at Celtic. Jamesy Forrest, Callum McGregor, Tony Ralston, that type of player that's come through the ranks, and they know the inner workings and the fabric of the club, and the demands that the fans in the club has are key. They're absolutely key. They're critical. Now, if he wasn't playing, I'd have a different opinion of him, Jerry. But James Forrest will play. He won't play every game. He will play. But I do think there's an important element which is non-football when it comes to a player like James Forrest behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that's what Celtic's all about, isn't it? He's been there for... How many years is it now, actually?
15th season. It's his 15th season. Yeah.
15 seasons. Look, I think with this season, it was a case of they knew they were keeping him. He was getting game time. He's got that goal now. That means he scored every single season. He's not going to want to risk that next season, I don't think, getting less game time. I think it's going to be a case he's either going to retire or he's going to move on. Or is he going to stay behind the scenes? I don't know. It doesn't scream coaching ability or manager when it comes to James Forrest. He doesn't look like that outgoing kind of personality. Who knows? Does he want to stay in the game? We don't know. I get what you're saying about how you want to see him being a one-club man. That comment that come up. However, he might still feel like he's got a lot to offer. So who knows? I was going to say Fleetwood, but Scott Brown's not there anymore, is he? So he's
not.
But us talking about, but it's not disrespect what we're talking about. We know what he's given us over the years. He'll go down as a legend of the club. But us saying that his time's up, it's not disrespectful in that. It's just we're seeing how it is now. He'll be seeing it himself. He's been a fantastic servant. He'll be great having around. I don't think he's great having around because he's good in the dressing room, but his whole story, that can encourage all these other younger players to say, look, this is how James Forrest got his chance. Stick in there. It might happen to you as well. And he's a Prestwick boy. He lives around the corner from where I was brought up, so...
Still due you a jersey as well, by the way.
He is still due me a jersey, by the way. I'll call him up for that. I'll say to Brendan next time I'm making coffee with him.
I text him. Young Hong looked fine yesterday too. Home kind of came in from the blue, Acsom. There was mention the other week there from Brendan Rodgers that he'd been ill. He's had a few injuries. He's had a bit of an up and down start to life at Celtic, where he's had some really good performances. And yesterday turned out to be one of them. And I think also he's had a disappointment of like the red card against Feyenoord, for example, match day 1. But over the piece, for a guy who's just turned 21, I think Odin Holm, he's one for the future. He's going to play a number of games this season, but he's not a first pick. He's no one I would want to send out on loan, though, because I think he's going to get enough game time at Celtic. And I think long term, if we can continue with his development, he'll end up turning out to be a right good buy for Celtic. I mean, there's been a bit of an investment there, bringing him over. Loads of games under his belt before he's come in competitively. I know, again, I keep using this as a caveat, the standard of the opposition wasn't great yesterday, but it was good to see him getting the game time and a nice reminder that, you know what, he has contributed this season, and I'm pretty sure that when called upon in the second half of the campaign, he will be somebody you can rely on as well, Acsom.
Yeah, he's one that came in with a fair, not reputation, but I remember you get those kind of polls at the start of a season about top 100 young players to look out for, and he was among that. He's obviously played quite a lot for a young player, and he was one that I was kind of had high hopes for. And I would say that out of all the summer signings, Palma accepted, he's probably been the next one that people have I looked at and thought he's got something there, because even in his earlier appearances, he did look like a neat and tidy player. Again, maybe the physicality element was something that he could work on, but he looks like he's got something. Obviously, then the red card happened, and then he's had a few chances in some of the home games. I remember around the time that maybe it was a Motherwell game, or I can't remember if it was Hearts, but he didn't really take the chance. But that was around the time where nobody was. We had the two midfield positions of McGregor, O'Reilly, and the third was pretty much a lucky dip between Turnbull, Iwata, Bernardo. Nobody was cementing their spot. But now that he's came back, I thought Rodgers made comments yesterday before the game how he wanted him to really come in and dominate and show he's worthy of that spot in McGregor's absence. And I thought he grew into the game really well. I think once he got his goal, and just generally he's got some neat touches. He's quite clever as well. He looks like he's someone that can definitely grow into that role. And I agree. I think that's someone that I would keep in that kind of midfield core that we've got of players. I'm quite happy with the current midfield situation, if I'm honest, between McGregor, O'Reilly, Hatate, Bernardo, Iwata and Holm. I think that's a good mix of players, a good nucleus. And if one drops out, someone can come in and do a job. So, yeah, I'm liking the look of him. I think he's definitely one that can develop. Again, Rodgers that's one of his main skills that we've all been told about and that we've seen, that is he can bring players along and improve them. So yeah, I'd like to see Holm get some game time where possible. Obviously, we've got a very important run-in now, so whether he'll see a lot of game time, we don't know. But even just coming on in games, maybe seeing a game out and things like that, I think he can bring a lot to the table still.
Yeah,
Acsom.
I agree with that.
Yes.
Acsom, do you remind me, can you remember what Paul John put in the group chat just before Holm scored yesterday?
I thought
I'm
he
sure
needed
there
a
was
rest.
screenshots.
He done a lot of running. Jerry done a lot of running. I thought he needed a rest.
The timing of it was perfect, though. The timing of it was literally about 30 seconds before he completes a really nice 1-2 and slots it in. But I'll let you, Paul John, enlighten the viewers.
The thing is, I seen what you do on social media is you don't just type in everything that comes to your head. You think that you're in a safe place to do that in a WhatsApp group, and that nobody's going to dig you out for it live on the Monday.
Sorry for throwing you under the bus, mate.
That's fine. It's absolutely fine. Yeah, I actually didn't think he was having a great game. I think he came into it yesterday. Yeah. That's my comeback from that in any case. By the way, talking in social media, Uncle Nobby's Steamboat, that did look like an impressive fry-up that you were indulging in, Jerry.
See, when you put, right, remember we were on Acsom and we were talking about rolls and sausage once, and then they just lit up. See, if you put a picture of your breakfast up online, everyone's got an opinion. And it's split the nation, by the way, I'm telling you. So I like my beef sausages a bit rare. If it's a pork sausage, I'll cook them really thingy. Megan made it for me, so it was a belter. So folk were slagging off that I didn't have a torty scone. Can I just say the shop didn't have any? What else? My bacon was cremated.
Did you have fruit
I like
pudding?
crispy bacon. Fruit pudding. By the way, somebody's told me that apparently a wee fried fruit scone's quite nice on a thingy as well.
Oh, listen.
No, a fried one, I toast it with.
everybody that's watching from afar will be saying, "What on earth are you talking about?" Our big Costa Rican fans and the guys in Vietnam that tune in on a regular. Sometimes we hit #1 in the charts in Vietnam.
Wow.
So yeah, you can give them the culinary delights from Scotland. Nice one.
The thing about it was, I was watching the game, and the reason I put it up was Megan brought me a full fry up while I'm watching Celtic play. I mean, you can't get better than that, can you?
That's
it was a flex.
paradise. That's and in the meantime, people at the game are getting like absolutely pummeled with rain on the side of the feet, and there's you sitting with the feet up, just lording it up. Absolutely. Mantis Toboggan AMD, all gambling alcohol advertising should be illegal. It will happen. It will happen. The Scottish game have already confirmed that they will not be affected at the moment by the gambling regulations, but I think it will happen in time. I mean, you just need to look through old football programmes to see how tobacco companies used to be advertised all over football stadiums and in the programmes, and now that's changed and it will change. Robert Hyland picks up on the fact that Kwon got the man of the match at the weekend. I just think, we've been banging on about it. When you've got a bloated squad, get them out to play. Montgomery at Motherwell, obviously Kwon at St Mirren. I think Tillio needs to go out. Yang needs to go out. Any other players, even the ones that are not going out to develop, get them game time, and it helps us to move them on. Because at the moment, you could look at a player, I seem like Bernabe, say you're looking for a left back, he's popped up on your short list, and then you look at the game time and you think to yourself, right, am I really going to be taking this boy on? He's barely played. So I just think even with a guy like him, get him out to play, because it will make it a lot easier to offload him at the end of the campaign as well. I mean, I had big high hopes about the amount of players we were going to offload. You mentioned the central midfielders. You didn't mention Turnbull. He was an unused sub again yesterday. I posed the question last week, which ex-Celtic player was sketched by Pablo Picasso? And this morning, something else posted a video of Picasso painting a bull. And it wasn't David Turnbull that he painted. It was a guy called Seaton Early. Look him up. Seaton Early left Celtic and moved to Cannes. One of his neighbours was Pablo Picasso. They both liked a bevy.
What?
And Seaton Early, ex-Celtic player, honestly, unbelievable story, ended up being a life model for Pablo Picasso because he had the athletic stature that he wanted for sketching. Seriously. So
that's amazing.
That's unbelievable. The things you learn,
like
Jerry, just by talking to people. I was talking to a guy called Tommy Carruthers, who's a martial art expert. Like, he's a friend of Bruce Lee's family and all this kind of stuff, from Glasgow. And I was just before the interview saying, that it is a Celtic podcast that I do. If you've got any kind of link to the club, well, there is one. I'll tell you about it during the pod. And he tells me that story. It was a mic drop moment, you know what I mean? And apparently some of the sketches are still within the family.
That's amazing. I wonder see if any of the viewers can tell us, what's the most amazing fact that you know about a Celtic player that isn't related to the actual team? I love stuff like that.
I love that. It's unique. It really is unique. But it does take us on to the fact that Pablo Picasso painted a bull at some point, and we've got our very own bull, I've seen, in David Turnbull. What do you do with the boy? What do you do with him?
I think he needs to find another club for his own career. I think he's too good a player not to be playing football. I just don't think I was going to say he's not a good enough player to play for Celtic, but I mentioned this in one of the other kind of channels I was speaking on yesterday, that it's more, I think, again, it's a personality thing for me. When you look at him at Motherwell, he used to take the game by the scruff of the neck. He was their main man. He enjoyed that role. He dominated games. He looked like he was going to be the next big talent. But we've just not seen that enough for Celtic. He doesn't take his chance when it comes, consistently enough, or in big games. He's not someone you feel you can rely on to really get you out of a hole at times. I know he scored a fair few goals in terms of long range efforts, but just in general over his piece, I like him, but I just don't know if he's got that, like I say, personality to really flourish and move on, take him to the next step at Celtic. So I think for him and for the club, I think, he's obviously, his deal's coming to an end. So whether it's going to be now or in summer, I think it's time for him to move on. The fact he didn't even come on yesterday, I think, was quite telling. The fact Bernabe didn't come on, I think that's the manager putting out a message as well that these are the kind of guys that aren't really in his plans. So if we can get rid of them, that sounds harsh, get rid of them, but offload them in the next 10 days, I think, again, that'll be good for the squad, and just we just need to start trimming it down. You're right, we're still far too top heavy, and you wonder if that's holding us back in terms of bringing people in, because I know historically we're bad for that. You know, we're reactive rather than proactive. So we'll be thinking, oh, we need to get rid of these guys first, rather than get players in. Let's get this league won, deal with what we need to do after, if that's the case.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that, I've got to say. And we do talk about players like they're just commodities, you know, just get rid of them and all this stuff. We do, as football fans, we fall into that kind of habit. But, you know, when you're looking at that squad, players like Bernardo, Siegrist, McCarthy, Kobayashi, Turnbull, they players need to move on. They need to move on, and hopefully it happens in this particular window. But picking up on something Jerry said there, any quirky wee Celtic tales and stories, honestly, fire them into the comment section. I love all that stuff. And I'm going to be doing a series of videos in 2024 done slightly differently. Jerry, you know the style I'm going to do them in. Done slightly differently. And it's all that type of interesting wee quirky stories that you'll get in the history of Celtic Football Club that I'll be covering. So please share them. I'll do a wee bit more research and we will cover them on the channel. By the way, that was a very quick hour. We've spoken about everything from die-hard vests to Eaton Searley being painted by Pablo Picasso, to the way that Jerry enjoys his football with his feet up in a big fry-up. And there's a wee bit of football in there as well. So thank you, everybody, for getting involved. 1,000 strong on the live stream on this Monday afternoon. All that's left for me to say is thank you once again, Jerry Taylor, Acsom Rabbani, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Cheers.